The forest of Cryo 7 was a place where no human had ever walked. The air shimmered faintly with bioluminescent mist, glowing like trapped starlight. Strange trees curved upward, their trunks translucent, pulsing with veins of light. Every leaf, every shadow, watched. In that otherworldly stillness, something hunted. It moved on four limbs at first, then two, its body shifting with fluid grace. The Dray'lek, apex predator of the Vakun Empire, had never failed a mission. It was a perfect killer, engineered to track, to kill, to adapt, and today it was tracking one thing, a human. Its claws left no sound on the glowing moss. Its vision switched between thermal and motion spectrums, scanning for the warm shape it had studied for weeks. Target: Captain Aric Voss, Terran Defense Corps, survivor of a diplomatic crash on Cryo 7. The Dray'lek's mandibles twitched in anticipation. It had been told that humans were cunning, unpredictable, and dangerous, but in the end, soft. Flesh and fear, nothing more. Tonight, it would test that theory. Captain Aric Voss sat beside a dying fire, the orange light flickering against the black and silver plating of his armor. His face was hard, weathered, scarred from too many wars fought on too many worlds. He looked up at the twin moons through the break in the canopy, his jaw tight. He'd been alone for 13 days. His shuttle wrecked, his comms fried, supplies running low. The first few nights, he thought the rustling in the trees was just wildlife. But then he found the footprints. Something was hunting him. He didn't run. Instead, he prepared. Now, as the wind whispered through the alien trees, he smiled faintly. "Come on." Then, he murmured under his breath, "Let's get this over with." A mile away, the Dray'lek paused. It had caught the sound. Low, human speech, and something else, calmness. The human wasn't afraid. That was strange. Prey should fear the dark. It crouched, talons digging into bark, eyes narrowing. The target's heart rate was steady. No panic, no scent of adrenaline. The predator adjusted its approach. It switched to silent thermal tracking, flanking downwind, moving like liquid shadow. It could already imagine the kill. Quick, clean, perfect. The Empire had promised glory for this hunt, but as it leapt from the tree line, the fire exploded. A wave of heat tore through the clearing. The Dray'lek crashed into the date, disoriented, its armor scraping against rock. It roared, not in pain, but in surprise. The human stood in the flames, calm and steady. His visor glowed faintly blue. "Guess you finally found me," Voss said. "Now let's see if you bleed." The predator lunged. Voss dodged sideways, narrowly avoiding claws that sliced through the air like razors. He fired once, a short plasma burst that caught the creature in the shoulder. It barely staggered. They circled each other, predator and prey. Voss could feel the adrenaline now. Every instinct screamed to run, but he ignored it. Instead, he studied the creature, tall, lean, armored in a natural carapace that shimmered like glass. Its eyes glowed red, intelligent and cold. It moved like a dancer. The Dray'lek hissed, its voice deep and clicking, half mechanical, half organic. "You fight well for a prey species." Voss smirked. "You talk too much." He dove low, slamming a charge into the ground. A concussive blast sent the creature sprawling. The Dray'lek roared, fury echoing through the forest. It stood, bleeding Darkica, claws flexing. "You cannot win, human." "Winning's optional," Voss said, pulling a knife from his boot. "Living's the point." They fought through the clearing, brutal, close, primal, sparks and blood and ash. The alien was stronger, faster, but Voss was clever. He used the terrain, the roots, the firelight, everything. Each move was calculated chaos, unpredictable, Human. When the Dray'lek struck, Voss ducked under its arm and drove the knife into the soft joint beneath its ribs. The creature screamed, collapsing to one knee. But before Voss could finish it, the ground shook. The fire guttered. The Dray'lek's comm implant lit up, projecting a small hologram in the air, a cold, metallic face surrounded by static. "Hunter," it commanded. "Report." The alien tried to stand, panting, bleeding. "Target, still alive." "Then you have failed. Return to base for termination." Voss's eyes narrowed. Termination. The hologram turned toward him, scanning. Human presence detected. Eradicate and self-destruct. No witnesses. Then it vanished. The Dray'lek froze. Its armor glowed, internal energy building toward explosion. "Hey," Voss said quietly, stepping closer. "They just made you disposable." The alien looked up, confused. I serve the Empire." "Yeah," Voss said, offering his hand, "and they just served you your death warrant." The alien's claws twitched, torn between instinct and logic, between training and survival. The countdown began to pulse in its neural implant. 10 seconds. Voss didn't move. "I can stop it," he said, "but you have to choose. Right now." The Dray'lek's voice cracked. "You would save your killer." Voss smiled faintly. "You're not my killer. Not anymore." 5 seconds. The creature looked down at his outstretched hand, then at the fire, then back at the human. It made its choice. The forest erupted in light as the self-destruct failed, overridden by a human code Voss had written years ago, back when he fought machines instead of monsters. The explosion never came. Only silence. Smoke drifted. When the light cleared, the predator still lived, wounded but alive. It looked at the human, breathing heavily. "Why? Help me." Voss shrugged. "Because we've all been used by someone. Now we both get to decide what happens next." Smoke still lingered over the clearing, twisting through the bioluminescent trees like ghosts. The faint crackle of dying fire was the only sound left. Captain Aric Voss stood with his sidearm lowered, staring across the smoldering ruins of his camp. The Dray'lek, the apex predator that had tried to kill him minutes ago, now knelt before the embers. Bleeding, shaking, and confused. Voss could see its carapace glint in the moonlight, cracked from the failed detonation. Its eyes glowed dull orange instead of predatory red. It was alive, but not the same creature that had pounced from the dark. Still breathing. Voss muttered, "That's a start." He holstered his weapon and approached slowly. Every instinct screamed against it. Every scar on his body told him he should finish the job. But he didn't. "Don't move," he said quietly. "You do anything stupid, and I won't hesitate." The alien looked up, its mandibles trembling. "You stopped the explosion." "Why?" Voss stopped just out of reach. "Because I don't kill people just because someone else says I should." For a long time, neither spoke. The forest buzzed with faint alien sounds, insect-like creatures glowing green, distant animal calls echoing between crystal trunks. The world was alive again, as if watching this strange truce unfold. The Dray'lek shifted. "I was sent to kill you. My orders were absolute." "I noticed," Voss said dryly. The alien lowered its head. "Now, I am nothing. No purpose. No honor." Voss crouched beside it. His tone softened, just slightly. Honor's a strange thing. Some of us earn it by killing, others by not. The Dray'lek tilted its head, studying him. "Humans, you fight, but not for survival alone." "Why?" Voss smirked faintly. "Because survival's not enough. We fight for each other, for something bigger than ourselves." The alien's voice was low, uncertain. I have know each other. Then maybe, Voss said, standing, it's time you did. By dawn, the fire had burned to ash. The human and the alien sat side by side, silent but alert. The Dray'lek's breathing was heavy, each rasp mechanical, the sound of torn lungs trying to repair themselves. Voss handed it a canteen. Water. Don't ask what's in it. You won't like the answer. The Dray'lek hesitated, then drank. The liquid hissed faintly against its internal systems, but it didn't stop. It looked at him again. You risk your supplies. For me? Voss shrugged. I'm a Terran. We share our misery. The alien blinked, an almost human gesture. Terran. It repeated slowly, tasting the word. Strange. You destroy worlds, yet you heal enemies. Yeah, Voss said, smirking. We're a mixed bag. They moved together through the alien forest later that day. The terrain shimmered beneath shifting light. Massive trees that grew sideways, rivers that flowed upward, and ancient monoliths humming faintly like machinery beneath the ground. Voss led the way, his rifle slung across his back. He moved with military precision, scanning the horizon every few seconds. The Dray'lek followed quietly, limping but steady, its large frame still intimidating even in weakness. You can walk faster if you stop glaring at me, Voss said without looking back. I am considering you, the alien replied. Considering what? How a species so small can be so dangerous. Voss chuckled. Story of our lives. By afternoon, they reached the wreckage of Voss's ship. The hull was twisted, half buried in the soil. Smoke no longer rose from it, but the damage was beyond repair. Your den, the Dray'lek observed, was, Voss said flatly, now it's just a fancy tomb. He pried open the emergency compartment and retrieved a cracked comm device. Static filled the air. He tried rerouting the signal through his armor, but the interference from the planet was too strong. No signal. He muttered, Figures. The alien watched him closely. Your people will not find you. They'll try, Voss said. Humans always do, especially when they shouldn't. The Dray'lek was silent for a long time, then spoke. My people will return. They will not stop until my failure is erased. Voss looked up sharply. You mean they'll send another hunter? The alien nodded slowly. More than one. Voss exhaled. Great. You just turned my bad week into a funeral. The predator turned its gaze toward the horizon. If they find us, they will kill you. And me. Voss smirked, loading his rifle. Then we'd better make it hard for them. The alien's eyes widened. You would fight alongside me. Why not? Voss said, checking his ammo. You already tried to kill me once. Can't get much worse. The Dray'lek looked almost confused, an apex predator that had never been offered friendship. Its mind, built for combat and obedience, didn't know what to do with choice. Voss caught the hesitation. You're not a weapon anymore, he said. You're something new, something free. That's what scares them. The alien tilted its head. And what does it make me? Voss gave a small, weary grin. Dangerous in a whole new way. As night fell again, they fortified the wreck, using debris to build cover, setting traps in the underbrush, and syncing the Dray'lek sensors to Voss's motion sensors. They worked in silence at first, but then the alien spoke softly. When they come, I will fight beside you. Voss glanced at him. That's the idea. For survival. No, Voss said, lighting a new fire. For payback. The flames rose high, reflected in both their eyes, one human, one alien. Above them, in the darkness of the twin moons, shapes began to move, sleek hunters cutting through the night sky. The Empire had sent replacements. The Dray'lek's voice dropped to a growl. They are here. Voss cracked his knuckles and smiled. Good. Save me the trouble of sending an invitation. The night sky burned. Not with fire, with movement. Silver shapes cut through the atmosphere, silent as blades, leaving streaks of light in their wake. The Dray'lek's hunter ships. Captain Aric Voss watched them descend through the shattered canopy, his jaw tight. The soft crackle of firelight reflected off his scarred face and the dark curve of his rifle. Next to him, the alien predator, the one who was once his enemy, crouched low, every muscle tensed. They're early, Voss muttered. The Dray'lek's voice was low and heavy. The Empire does not hesitate when cleaning its mistakes. Voss smirked faintly. Guess we're both a mistake. Then. The alien turned its head slightly, studying him. You do not fear them. Voss shrugged, checking his weapon's charge. I've fought worse. Bureaucrats, mostly. The Dray'lek didn't laugh, but there was something in its posture, a hesitation, a flicker of understanding that hadn't been there before. From the jungle beyond, the forest began to glow. Not natural light, this was weapon light. Blue plasma beams swept through the trees, disintegrating anything alive. The sound followed, a low, rhythmic hum that made the ground tremble. Voss ducked behind the wreckage of his ship. The Dray'lek stayed still, eyes narrowing. They are sweeping the area. They will find us soon. Voss smiled grimly. Then let's make them wish they hadn't. He pulled out a small metal sphere and pressed a button. The device unfolded into a miniature turret, humming softly. Two more followed. The Dray'lek tilted its head. Primitive. Crude. Voss smirked. Effective. The alien studied him for a moment longer. You planned for this. I always plan for the worst. Surprises me less when it happens. Moments later, the forest erupted. The first squad of Dray'lek soldiers, sleeker, faster, deadlier, broke through the trees. They moved in perfect synchronization, armor glinting in the twin moonlight. Their eyes burned red. They spoke through link comms. Target confirmed. Terminate both. No salvage. The first shot fired, a burst of plasma. It missed Voss by inches, vaporizing a tree behind him. Voss ducked, rolled, and fired back. His rifle barked with sharp blue flashes. One of the hunters went down, its chest plate smoking. The others adjusted instantly, flanking him with mechanical precision. The Dray'lek, his former hunter, moved like lightning. With a roar that split the night, it leapt into the air, slamming into the nearest soldier. Claws ripped through armor. Sparks flew. The hunters hesitated. Their leader barked. Defective unit. You betray the Empire. The alien's response was a guttural growl. No, I betray your masters. Voss covered its flank, moving between cover, firing short bursts. Every shot counted. Every movement was deliberate. Years of war had honed him to something sharper than survival, instinct. The Dray'lek fought beside him, brutal and efficient, its movements almost animal, but different now, purposeful, free. For the first time in his long life, the predator wasn't following orders. It was fighting for something else. When the last hunter fell, silence returned. Smoke curled through the clearing, painting the night in shades of blue and orange. Voss leaned against the wreckage, breathing hard. His armor was scorched, his weapon nearly empty. The Dray'lek stood over the fallen soldiers. Its claws dripped with black ichor that shimmered in the firelight. Voss met its gaze. You didn't have to help me. The alien replied quietly. You didn't have to save me. They dragged the bodies into a pile, stripping the gear for power cells and ammunition. As Voss worked, the Dray'lek knelt beside one of the dead hunters. Its claws traced a sigil on the fallen armor, the mark of its homeworld. Voss noticed the motion. You knew them. They were my clutch mates, the alien said softly. Its voice trembled. Born from the same gene pool. We shared the same thoughts. The same purpose. Voss paused. And now? The Dray'lek looked up at the night sky. Now, I am nothing. Voss shook his head. You're not nothing. You're just new. Scary thing. Being new means you've got choices. The alien blinked, mandibles clicking. Choices. Yeah, Voss said, wiping grease from his hands. You get to decide who you are, not what someone else built you to be. As dawn broke over Cryo 7, the world seemed to breathe again. The fog glowed gold. The trees shimmered with dew that looked like glass. The battle had ended. For now, Voss sat beside the alien on a cracked piece of hull plating. For the first time, there was quiet between them that wasn't tension. He glanced sideways. You got a name? The alien hesitated. Names are for soldiers. I was designation Hunter Prime 27. Voss snorted. Terrible name. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. The alien tilted its head. Humans, name everything. Why? Because names mean we remember, Voss said. He picked up a piece of scorched metal, tossed it into the fire. You name something, it matters. The alien stared into the flames. Then, what would you name me? Voss thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. How about Riven? Means something that's been broken, but still standing. The alien's eyes glowed softly. Riven. It repeated, the sound unfamiliar, but right. Welcome to the family, Riven, Voss said, leaning back. Try not to eat me. But before the moment could settle, the sky tore open. A ship descended through the clouds, not a hunter ship this time, but something larger, angular, imperial. The Dray'lek's eyes widened. That is not a retrieval craft. That is a purifier. They will destroy everything on this world to erase us. Voss stood, pulling his rifle and loading the last charge. Then we'd better make our mark before they do. The alien's claws flexed, its voice deepening. You intend to fight that? Voss smirked. What? And ruin my reputation for being unreasonable. The alien made a sound somewhere between a growl and a laugh. As the purifier's engine screamed overhead, the ground trembled. Trees fell. The light of dawn vanished beneath the ship's shadow. Voss looked up, eyes narrowing against the brilliance of descending fire. Let's show them, he said softly, what happens when they underestimate humans. The alien turned its head, mandibles curling. And Dray'lek. Voss grinned. Yeah, that too. They stood side by side, the hunter and the human, ready to defy an empire. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Above the jungle canopy, the Imperial Purifier descended, a fortress disguised as a ship. It blotted out the twin suns, its hull miles wide, covered in obsidian plating that shimmered with artificial light. Dozens of drop pods broke off from its underbelly, streaking across the sky like falling meteors. Each one carried soldiers, or worse. Captain Aric Voss stood beside his unlikely ally, Riven, watching the storm arrive. The heat from the re-entry flames painted his armor orange, reflecting across his scarred face like firelight. Riven's claws flexed, slicing into the blackened soil. They are deploying a cleansing swarm. Once it begins, nothing will survive. Voss's voice was calm, almost cold. Then let's make sure they remember what tried to kill us. The alien's eyes glowed faintly. You speak as if you have already lost. Voss gave a half smile. Lose? I haven't even started yet. The first drop pod slammed into the forest, scattering plasma fire and metal shards. The trees ignited instantly, sending up spirals of glowing smoke. The air filled with the smell of ozone and burning sap. Out of the wreckage, Dray'lek and forces emerged, larger than Riven, plated in thicker carapace, each armed with integrated plasma weapons fused into their arms. Their voices overlapped through the neural hive, cold and unified. Designate Riven, defective. Designate human, terminate. Voss crouched behind a collapsed wing fragment, his rifle charged, his eyes darting over the terrain. He wasn't seeing chaos. He was building a plan. Every tree, every piece of scrap, every beam of light was a variable. Riven, he said quietly, how many do you think you can take? The alien bayed its teeth. How many exist? Voss smirked. That's what I like to hear. The first wave attacked. Bolts of plasma screamed through the air. The wreckage exploded around them, spraying molten shards. Voss rolled behind cover, firing bursts of blue light that punched through armor. The recoil slammed into his shoulder, but he didn't stop. Riven moved like a blur, leaping across burning roots, claws tearing into metal, smashing skulls against rock. The ground trembled with every impact. He fought with ferocity, but not chaos. He fought like Voss, calculated, deliberate, human. For every Dray'lek enforcer that fell, another appeared. The purifier above rumbled, releasing drones that began to swarm through the canopy like silver insects. Voss reloaded, slammed the charge, and shouted, "Back to the ship!" They retreated through the burning jungle, dodging fire and collapsing debris. The air was thick with ashen light. The world itself seemed to bleed. Behind them, the enemy advanced, relentless. They reached the clearing where the wrecked Terran shuttle lay half-buried. Voss dove into the cockpit and began yanking open the side panel, exposing a mess of circuitry. Riven crouched outside, slicing through the last of the drones. "What are you doing?" "Remember that distress beacon I told you was fried?" Voss grunted. "Turns out, it's not as dead as I thought." The alien tilted its head. "You mean to call your people?" "Not exactly," Voss said, grinning. "I mean to call everyone." He connected 2 wires, and the beacon roared to life. But this wasn't a distress signal. It was a broadcast. A looping message, transmitted on open galactic frequencies. "This is Captain Aric Voss of the Terran Defense Corps. The Dray'lek Empire has declared war on free will itself. They fear what they cannot control, human or otherwise. If you hear this message, then you're already part of the fight." The signal went out like a spark thrown into dry grass, spreading fast, unstoppable. Across nearby systems, ships and colonies intercepted the message. Old enemies, scavengers, and freedom fighters paused to listen. But inside the jungle, it also drew attention, the wrong kind. The purifier's core began to glow, charging. Energy built beneath its hull, humming like thunder. Riven's eyes widened. They mean to vaporize the entire continent. Voss climbed out of the cockpit, his armor cracked and glowing with reflected light. "Then we better make it worth the fireworks." Riven looked at him for a long moment. The soldier, the prey, the friend. "You would die for this." Voss smirked. "Die for it? Hell no. Live long enough to make them regret trying." The alien huffed, an almost human laugh. "Then we fight together." They climbed the ridge overlooking the purifier's landing site. The air was hot, heavy, alive with energy. The jungle below had turned into a battlefield of light. Voss knelt, pulling a small cylindrical device from his belt, a fusion spike, forbidden tech. He set it on the ground, activating it with a flick of his thumb. The blue light pulsed. Riven looked down at the glowing weapon. "That will destroy this valley." "Yeah," Voss said, "and if we time it right, it'll take out their command core before they fire the main gun. You will not survive the blast." Voss glanced up. "You think I planned on living forever?" The alien hesitated, then reached out, placing a clawed hand on his shoulder. "You carry death like a weapon, human, but you fight for life." Voss smiled. "Guess we're learning from each other." They moved fast, through the firestorm, dodging plasma bolts and collapsing terrain. Riven ripped through enemy ranks while Voss sprinted toward the purifier control node, a glowing spire of dark energy that pierced the sky. Every shot, every heartbeat, every breath brought them closer to the impossible. Voss reached the base, slamming the fusion spike into the ground. He set the timer. 10 seconds. He looked back. Riven, time to move. The alien roared, breaking through the last line of soldiers, smoke trailing from its wounds. Go! It shouted, but Voss didn't. He stayed, just long enough to make sure the device was armed. The purifier began to charge again, light pouring from its core like the birth of a star. Voss whispered, "For Earth, for all of us." The spike detonated. A sphere of blue-white light swallowed the jungle whole, silencing the world in a single, brilliant instant. For a moment, there was peace. Then came the shockwave. The purifier fractured, split in two, and fell from the sky in molten shards. Miles away, amid the wreckage, Riven dragged himself from the ash. His armor was burned, his claws broken. He searched through the smoke until he found what was left, a piece of metal, charred but still recognizable. Voss's helmet. He picked it up gently, staring at the cracked visor. For the first time in his life, the apex predator felt something unfamiliar. Sorrow. He looked up toward the rising sun and whispered. He fought like a human. He died like one. Then, faintly, through the static of his neural link, a voice answered. Not dead yet, partner. Riven's eyes widened. Voss! You didn't think I'd let you have all the glory, did you? Ash fell like snow. The jungle that had once glowed with alien life was now nothing but glass and ruin. The air shimmered with heat and the distant echoes of thunder, not from storms, but from the death throes of the Imperial Purifier. In the silence, Riven stood alone among the wreckage, holding the blackened remains of Captain Aric Voss's helmet. His claws were trembling, not from weakness, but from something far more dangerous, emotion. For the first time in his existence, the apex predator didn't know what to do. His purpose had burned away with the ship, and all that remained was a memory of the human who'd changed everything. He turned the helmet over, staring into the cracked visor. You were chaos, he whispered, his deep voice rough and low. And somehow, that chaos made sense. Then, faint static, a voice broke through. Riven, you gonna stand there all day, or are you gonna come help me out of this mess? The alien froze. His head jerked up, eyes wide, mandibles twitching. Voss! The voice came again, faint, distorted, but unmistakable. Human, alive. You sound disappointed. Riven scanned the horizon. The ground was still smoking, the horizon fractured with craters. Then he saw it, a faint trail of blue light, pulsing weakly beneath a collapsed section of rock. He sprinted forward, strength surging back through his limbs. With a roar that shook the air, he tore through slabs of molten debris. Beneath the wreckage, half buried in ash and twisted metal, lay Voss, armor cracked, blood streaking his face, but eyes still sharp, still alive. Voss coughed, grimacing. You look like hell, big guy. Riven leaned closer. You survived the detonation. Mostly, Voss said, glancing around. Ship didn't. My ego didn't either. But hey, at least I ruined someone's day up there. He pointed weakly toward the sky, where pieces of the purifier still burned in re-entry. Riven helped him to his feet, carefully, almost reverently. Your signal vanished. I thought you were gone. Not yet, Voss said, brushing off ash. Humans have a bad habit of not dying when they are supposed to. The alien tilted his head. That is not a habit. It's insanity. Yeah, Voss said with a smirk. Same thing. They began moving through the devastation. The once living jungle was now a wasteland of smoke and black glass. Strange lights flickered beneath the surface, the shattered remains of the purifier's core still pulsing underground. Every step sent tremors through the earth. Riven paused, scanning the horizon. The purifier's power core has not fully collapsed. It is feeding into the planet. Voss frowned. Meaning? Riven turned his head slowly. Meaning this world is about to wake up angry. As if on cue, the ground split open with a deafening crack. Blue energy spewed upward in a storm of molten glass and plasma. Massive shards of the purifier hull rose from the earth, moving, pulsing, alive. Voss steadied himself against a rock. Oh, perfect. First, we kill an army, then their ship decide to grow a soul. Riven growled, eyes glowing bright gold. It is not alive. It is infected. The machine core is merging with the planet's neural crust. Voss raised an eyebrow. Neural crust. The planet itself is organic. Voss blinked. So we just gave a living planet a robot brain. He sighed. Riven, we might have just made something very stupid. From the fissure below, a shape began to rise, enormous, glowing, shifting between metal and flesh. The planet's consciousness, fused with the remains of the Imperial AI, towered above them. Its voice wasn't sound. It was vibration, resonating through the ground, through their bones. We are awake. Riven roared, shielding Voss as a wave of heat burst outward. It speaks. Yeah, Voss said, shielding his face from the glare. And I'm guessing it's not saying thank you. You burned our sky. You broke our chains. Now we break you. The mountain itself began to move. They ran, leaping across fissures, dodging collapsing terrain. Plasma rivers snaked through the wreckage as the entity reshaped the world. Voss shouted over the chaos. If the eyes merge the planet, can it still be reasoned with? Riven snarled. No, it is no self. Only power. Then we'll just have to teach it a little humanity. Riven turned his head sharply. You intend to talk to it? Not talk, Voss said, pulling a small glowing chip from his belt. Negotiate. Riven glanced at the device. That is an EMP core. Negotiation is not the word. Voss grinned through blooded teeth. For humans, it's the same thing. They reached the heart of the fissure. The molten light glowed brighter, the heat almost unbearable. The entity towered above them now, shifting, unstable, its voice echoing with countless others. You are alone, human. You are nothing. Voss raised the EMP chip, its blue light cutting through the smoke. Yeah? Funny thing about humans, we do our best work when we're alone. The voice thundered. You would destroy yourself to stop us. Voss smirked. You don't get it. I'm not stopping you. I'm stopping what you're becoming. He slammed the chip into the ground. The explosion of light was blinding. When the dust cleared, the fissure was silent. The core light had gone dark. Riven stumbled forward, scanning the crater. Voss! Smoke drifted through the wreckage. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then a shadow moved. Voss climbed out of the crater, armor blackened, carrying the still glowing chip. Well, he coughed. That was dramatic. Riven's mandibles twitched. You are impossible. Voss smiled faintly. No, just human. Far above them, in orbit, fragments of the purifier still drifted. But one piece, small, triangular, glowing faintly blue, detached from the debris, its sensors activated. It replayed the transmission Voss had sent earlier. His voice echoed through space. If you hear this message, then you're already part of the fight. The signal pulsed outward, stronger than before. It jumped between ships, colonies, outposts. The galaxy was listening. And somewhere, across countless stars, humans, and those who had once feared them, began to answer. Riven looked toward the heavens, watching the light spread. "What have you done, human?" Voss smiled, staring at the distant glow. Started a conversation. Space rippled. From the edge of the galaxy to the dim stars of forgotten systems, a signal pulsed like a heartbeat, rhythmic, steady, alive. It carried a single message, repeating in every known tongue, every code, every frequency. If you hear this message, then you're already part of the fight. Across distant colonies, humans stopped mid-step, staring at the holographic transmission shimmering in the air. Alien traders, mercenaries, and soldiers paused as a sound reached them too, a human voice, rough and scarred, defying empires. And somewhere in the ruins of Cryo 7, that same voice, real and alive, spoke again. Captain Aric Voss stood on a rise of molten glass, his armor scorched, his eyes reflecting the stars above. The wind howled across the dead jungle, carrying dust and the faint echo of something that almost sounded like hope. Behind him, Riven approached, the Dray'lek's armor patched together from scraps of their enemies, glowing faintly with new energy. The two of them, once predator and prey, now looked like warriors from the same war. "You realize," Riven said, voice deep and steady, "that signal of yours will draw every fleet in the sector." "That's the idea," Voss said, tightening the strap on his rifle. "They will not come to help," the alien replied. "They will come to silence you." Voss smiled faintly. "Then at least they'll finally be listening." The sky above them shimmered, not with fire this time, but with movement. Ships, hundreds of them, were converging on the system. Some carried the banners of empires. Others bore no markings at all. Pirates, scavengers, exiles. Every one of them had heard the signal. And every one of them wanted to know why a human had dared to challenge the galaxy. Riven's claws clicked against the metal surface. "You have just declared war on half the known universe." "Not war," Voss said. "A reminder." "A reminder of what?" He turned, meeting Riven's gaze. "That humans don't bow, and we don't break." The sky cracked open again. This time, not from the purifier, but from hyperspace tears, the first ships dropping out of warp. Voss squinted at the glow of their engines. "They're early." Riven tilted his head, scanning. "Not Imperial." Voss frowned. "Then who?" A booming voice cut through their comms. "This is the Terran Defense Command. We received your signal, Captain Voss." For the first time in weeks, Voss froze. The logo flashing across his visor was real, Earthfleet. "Command," he said slowly. "Didn't think you were still watching this end of the galaxy." "We watch everything, Captain, especially those who refuse to stay dead." Riven turned his head sharply. "Your people." "Yeah," Voss said softly, a smile creeping onto his face. "My people." The first Terran battleship entered the atmosphere, a massive vessel shaped like a blade of steel, its hull gleaming in the light of Cryo 7's twin suns. The ground shook as it landed, creating a shockwave of dust and wind that swept across the wasteland. The ship's insignia, the Eternal Resolve, reflected in Voss's cracked visor. As its ramp descended, human soldiers in matte black armor stepped out, weapons drawn. At their head was Admiral Kira Vale, a woman with silver hair and eyes like glass. "Captain Aric Voss," she said through her helmet speakers. "You're a hard man to kill." Voss chuckled. "It's a hobby." Vale's eyes flicked toward Riven, towering behind him like a living tank. "And this would be?" Voss gestured casually. "A friend." Riven's deep growl reverberated in the air. "I am not a pet, human." Vale's soldiers tensed instantly, but Voss didn't flinch. "His not a threat, his proof." "Proof of what?" Vale asked. That the enemy we've been fighting is an alien, Voss said, voice hardening. It's fear. Theirs. Ours. Doesn't matter who built it. Machine, empire, God. They all try to chain what they don't understand. He looked toward the horizon, where faint lights of incoming Imperial ships burn like distant stars. And I think it's time they learn what humanity really is. Vale studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. You started a fire, Captain. Now we'll see who burns. Riven stepped forward, his voice a low growl. They are coming. Hundreds of them. Vale looked at him without fear. Then we fight. Together. The words hung heavy in the air, alien and human, predator and soldier, enemies turned allies under a single cause. Voss grinned. Now that's the kind of trouble I missed. The battlefield began to glow. Imperial warships entered orbit, their cannons charging. The sky turned crimson, streaked with energy beams and debris. The first barrage hit the surface, shaking the ground like thunder. But this time, the Terrans fired back. The Eterna Resolve unleashed a barrage of white-hot plasma that split the sky open. Riven's claws extended, his body glowing with the heat of the storm. Voss stood at the front line, rifle in one hand, a grenade in the other, shouting over the raw war. Welcome to humanity's neighborhood. The explosion drowned out his words, but his defiance echoed louder than the blast. As the first wave hit, Voss and Riven charged side by side, one human, one alien, cutting through the chaos like twin storms. Every empire watching from afar saw it. Every world that had feared humanity remembered why the name Terran once meant hope and terror in equal measure. Because when humans fought, they didn't fight to win. They fought to remind the universe they existed. Hours later, the battlefield was silent again. The smoke began to clear. Riven stood amidst the ruins, his armor blackened, his body wounded, but alive. Voss sat on a broken slab of metal, helmet off, staring at the sunrise. Vale approached slowly. We've won. For now. Voss nodded. For now's enough. She looked at him. What now, Captain? He smiled faintly, eyes distant. Now, we make something better than war. Riven turned to him. And if the galaxy does not let us. Voss grinned. Then we'll just remind it again. As the sun rose over Cryo 7, the signal kept transmitting, bouncing across every system, louder, stronger, unstoppable. A human voice carried through the stars. We are humanity. We burn. We build. And when they send their monsters to kill us, we teach them how to live.